He didn't notice her at first. Not in the way people usually mean. She wasn't the type to pull attention like a hook through skin, not anymore, maybe not ever. She was sitting alone on a cracked concrete bench outside the library, legs crossed, hair in a loose bun held together by a pen that looked stolen from a dentist's office. Her hands moved in quick gestures, precise, practiced, scribbling marginalia in a book she clearly owned. Her coat was too thin for late October, her eyes guarded. It wasn't her beauty that caught him. It was the stillness. Everything about her seemed paused, like a scene from a film you don't want to unfreeze because you're afraid of what happens next. He couldn't explain it. She looked like someone who hadn't laughed in years. Not fake laughed, not polite chuckles. Really laughed uncoiled, reckless, involuntary. Liam was 22, halfway through his senior year, and by all accounts just another clever nobody in a sea of overachievers at the university. He studied literature because he was too restless for science and too self-aware for business. Most days he floated between lectures, coffee shops, and the basement radio station where he hosted an awkward late-night jazz hour that no one really listened to, including himself. He didn't chase much, not girls, not grades, not glory. But something about her made him pause, maybe because she didn't look like someone who belonged there, or maybe because she looked like someone who didn't belong anywhere anymore. He approached the bench without a plan. She didn't glance up. When he leaned over to read the spine of her book Patti Smith, M-Train, she shifted slightly, not hostile but cautious. "You like her?" he asked, and she looked up slowly, as if startled that someone would talk to her like that. Her face was older than he expected, but not in the tired way. In the textured way, like stories had etched themselves into her skin and refused to leave. "Everyone likes just kids," she said. "No one reads this one. It's lonelier." He didn't leave. They talked about Smith for a while, then about cigarettes, then about dreams that keep you up but don't follow you into the morning. He was sharper than she anticipated. She was sadder than he had guessed. She never gave her name, and he didn't ask. When she finally stood, the motion was almost apologetic. She tucked the book under her arm and walked off without goodbye. He thought of her all week. When he saw her again, same bench, same time, he brought 2 coffees, even though she never said she liked coffee. She accepted it without a smile. But she stayed. They talked again. This time about time, and how it gets cruel when it's quiet. Her name, eventually, was Maris. No last name. When he told her his, she repeated it aloud once, slowly, like she was testing it for something. He didn't know why he came back every week, or why she let him. There was a rhythm to it, something unspoken and fragile. He never flirted. She never encouraged. But every Tuesday at 4, they sat on the same bench, drinking cheap coffee and speaking in careful truths. He learned she was 43. Lived nearby. Worked as a ghostwriter for academic papers and technical manuals. Never married. Had a brother somewhere in Florida she hadn't spoken to in 8 years. Hated plastic plants. Had a real one she kept killing and reviving by mistake. One afternoon, she didn't come. He waited an hour, then 2. Rain started, thin but cold. When she finally walked up, wet hair, red hands, a limp in her left foot he hadn't noticed before, he didn't say anything. Just took off his jacket and put it around her shoulders. She looked at him like no one had in a very long time. And then, for the first time since he'd met her, she smiled. Not the kind of smile you give strangers. The kind that breaks open a part of you thought was closed forever. She said nothing. Neither did he. But everything changed after that. Liam had never known silence could feel this charged. Not the absence of sound, but the kind that crackled between glances, like something invisible but volatile had taken root. After the jacket. After the smile. Something had shifted, something unspoken but irreversible. The next Tuesday, she wasn't on the bench. He waited, heart tapping in that nervous way, silly, boyish, but he stayed. She didn't come. Nor the week after. Then she sent a message. Not a text, she had never given him her number. It came by campus mail, a plain envelope with a short note and a small drawing of a paper crane. No return address, but her handwriting was unmistakable, precise, almost reluctant. The note read, "I'm not who you think I am. Please stop waiting." But Liam didn't stop. He wrote back. He asked the radio station to mail it out. No return address needed. He didn't beg. He just told her the truth. "I don't need to think you're anyone. I just want to talk again. The coffee's colder without you." 3 days later, she called. Her voice, low and steady, crackled over the line. She said one thing, "Friday. 7. Don't be late." Then she hung up. She lived in a house that looked like it had been halfway unpacked for years, shelves full of mismatched mugs, unframed paintings leaning against the wall, books stacked in chaotic towers. There was no TV. Just music, playing from an old speaker, Nina Simone. Her kitchen smelled like oranges and burnt toast. They didn't talk about age. Not that night, not ever in words. But it hovered. The mirror behind her couch reflected the difference plainly, his unlined face next to hers, marked but striking, with eyes that had seen through too many things too young. Still, something happened between them, slow and quiet and real. Their silences became comfortable. Their conversations curled deeper. They didn't touch, not at first. But their closeness had weight, the kind that accumulates with every glance that lingers 1 second too long. He began to notice the scars. Not the literal ones, though there was one faint line on her wrist, old and almost faded, but the kind people carry in their posture, their jokes, their abrupt changes of subject. She mentioned an ex once, in passing. A man who had promised more than he could give and taken more than he admitted. Another time, she said, some people don't cheat with other people. They cheat with time. They steal it from you and leave you with less than you started. He told her about his father, how the man had walked out when Liam was 8, vanished like a ghost story, leaving behind a piano no one could play and a house full of half-finished projects. How his mother had to turn cold to keep from shattering. How love, to him, had always felt like a dare. They both laughed too loudly at a joke about unhappy marriages in a movie they watched on her old projector. And they both went silent when the couple on screen kissed. The first time they kissed, it wasn't sweet. It was defiant. She'd said something cutting about his youth, he'd said something reckless about her fear, and suddenly his hands were in her hair and her mouth was on his. It felt like a confession they didn't mean to make. They met more often after that, always in secret. Her house became a pocket universe outside the world, untouched by judgment. On campus, he was the same as ever, brilliant, aloof, slightly distant. To his friends, she didn't exist. In her world, no one knew him. And that was the point. But small towns have long shadows. Someone saw him leaving her place. He didn't know who. At first, just glances. Then murmurs. A professor asked if he was doing independent work, too casually. A neighbor of hers made a comment about young visitors. The air thickened. And then, the letter. It came in a standard envelope, slid under her door. No return address, typed words. Short, direct. People are noticing. If you want to survive here, stop. Before someone decides to do something about it. She read it twice, then again, expression unreadable. She didn't cry. She didn't even get angry. She just placed the letter on the kitchen table and said, "We always knew it couldn't last." But Liam wasn't ready to let go. He took the letter, folded it into his pocket, and said, "If they already know, then we have nothing left to hide." She looked at him like he'd just said something holy and foolish. "No, Liam," she said. "If they already know, then we have everything to lose." The days after the letter hung suspended in a kind of brittle quiet. The kind where everything continues, lectures, dishes, emails, but every moment feels like it's waiting to break. Liam stopped going to the bench by the library. He started spending more time at the radio station, his late-night jazz set transforming into something darker, more ambient, songs that moaned and unraveled, like old ghosts telling half-finished stories. Sometimes, he'd say her name aloud when the mic was off, just to remember how it sounded. Maris. Like a secret no one else deserved. They weren't seen together in daylight anymore. Their moments now belonged to the night, quick visits, low light, voices dropped to a hush even when no one was around. Their laughter, when it came, was stifled. Their touches lingered a little too long, like they were afraid each one would be the last. They had conversations that twisted into something deeper than confessions. He'd lie with his head on her thigh, tracing the crease of her palm, asking questions she sometimes answered and sometimes deflected. She told him about a manuscript she once ghostwrote for a professor who later became famous. He asked if she hated it. She said, "I don't hate the things I've given away. I hate the things I never had the chance to." He asked what those were. She said, "Children. Time. A version of myself that didn't disappear." He told her he was afraid of becoming someone no one really knows. She said, "You already are. You're just brave enough to admit it." They didn't talk about love. That word was too sharp, too dramatic, too easily used to set fire to things. But they moved through each other's lives like something essential. Every night they shared became its own small rebellion against fear, against judgment, against the ticking of time. One night, she took him out of the house, just once. A field on the edge of town, under a sky soaked in stars. They lay in the grass, not touching, just breathing. He said, "I don't care what people think." She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "That's because you haven't yet lost everything to what people think." He turned to look at her. "And you think I will?" She didn't say yes. She just looked at him with something like mourning. The next week, they were caught. Not directly. Just seen. It was a Tuesday, a storm had rolled in, and they hadn't seen each other in 6 days. The meeting was impulsive, desperate. They didn't even make it to the house. Instead, they stopped in the alley behind the hardware store. He kissed her like a man drowning. She pulled back with rain in her hair, smiling in that soft, broken way. Neither of them noticed the figure behind the dumpster. She didn't find out until Thursday, when the phone call came. A neighbor. She didn't say who. Just that someone had seen something, that rumors were already spinning, and that she needed to be more careful. She hung up before Maris could speak. That night, Liam came to her door and saw the lights off. He knocked. No answer. He sat on the porch in the rain until dawn. The next time they spoke, it was over tea, sitting at opposite ends of her kitchen table. She looked tired in a way he hadn't seen before. Not physically. Existentially. "I've been here before," she said. "Not like this. Not you. But this kind of trouble. The kind where the walls close in and the whispers get louder than truth." He didn't ask for details. He just said, "You're not alone." She leaned forward, hands folded. "I want to believe that. But you're young. You still think this is about us." "It's not. It's about what we represent." They don't see love. They see a scandal. A mistake. A woman who should know better. A boy who doesn't. "And what do you see?" he asked. "I see someone I didn't expect," she said. "And I see the end coming faster than it should." That night, they made love like it was the last time. Not frantic. Not soft. Just deliberate. Two people holding on to something already slipping. After, she traced his jawline with her fingertips and whispered, "When they come for us, promise you won't pretend this didn't matter." He held her tighter. "When they come for us, I'll say your name out loud." Liam had never been to a university fundraising gala before. He wore a borrowed blazer that didn't quite fit and shoes that made his feet ache before he even left the apartment. The invitation came as a surprise from Professor Mirren, who ran the literary theory seminar Liam had quietly aced. "A few top students are being invited this year," she'd said, too brightly. "You might want to make a good impression." He didn't ask who else would be there. He didn't think he needed to. The event was held in a glass atrium downtown, a place with floors that clicked when you walked in, wine that didn't come with labels. Liam stuck to a corner table, trying not to look like he'd snuck in. At first, it was fine. People talked too loudly, laughed at the wrong moments, and exchanged compliments that sounded like strategies. But then, just as the string quartet shifted into a melancholy version of Moon River, he saw her. Maris. She stood near the back wall, wearing a slate gray dress with sleeves that floated at the wrists and a neckline that dared not to apologize. Her hair was up, loosely twisted like she hadn't meant to try. Her eyes scanned the crowd with quiet calculation. He could tell the moment she saw him. She didn't smile. She didn't look away. She just blinked once, as if bracing herself for something. Liam stepped toward her, but someone intercepted him. Mirren again, cheerful, nosy. "Oh, Liam, before I forget, the dean was asking about your poetry portfolio. You've made quite the impression." Though, she tilted her head. "There's been some chatter lately. About associations. You know how small our campus is." He forced a laugh, tried to escape, but her grip on his sleeve lingered too long. "Be smart," she said. "Don't throw away your future over some pretty tragedy." When he finally broke free, Maris was gone from the corner. He found her outside, standing on the wide steps, arms folded. The air between them sparked with everything they weren't saying. "You knew I'd be here," she said, not accusing, just resigned. "No," he replied. "I didn't. But I'm not leaving now." A long silence stretched between them. Inside, the quartet played louder, as if the building were trying to drown them out. She turned toward him, voice low. "Someone's been emailing my clients. Anonymously. Suggesting that I'm involved with a student. That I've used manipulative influence." His stomach dropped. "You think it's someone from campus?" "I know it is. And I know what happens next. I lose work. You lose credibility. And if we say nothing, we get eaten slowly. If we speak up, we burn faster." A sharp gust of wind kicked up. Her hair came loose from its pins. He reached to fix it, but she moved away. Inside, a microphone clicked on. A pause. Then, this year's Faculty Recognition Award goes to an individual whose behind-the-scenes work has enabled countless publications and helped our academic community flourish. And then, to Liam's complete astonishment, the voice continued, "Maris O'Hara, freelance editor, research consultant, and longtime collaborator with our university departments." A spotlight fell on the glass entrance. All eyes turned. She froze. Liam stood beside her and reached out his hand. She didn't move. The applause started softly, some genuine, most confused. She stared into the building, into that bright, open room of colleagues and strangers and polite danger. Then she did something neither of them planned. She took his hand. And they walked in. It was like dropping a glass sculpture onto a marble floor. The applause died mid-clap. Heads turned like shutters. The dean's mouth twisted slightly. A woman in the back gasped in that staged, theatrical way meant for performance. But Maris walked forward, chin high, Liam's hand in hers. She took the mic from the startled MC, paused for half a second, and then, in a clear, unwavering voice, said, "You've all worked with me. Trusted me. Paid me under the table. Quoted me without credit. Some of you owe me your tenure. And now I'm being warned in whispers, threatened in shadows, because I dared to be seen with someone younger. Let me be clear, I have never lied about my work. I've never misled anyone. The only scandal here is the one you're writing in your heads." Silence. She turned to Liam, as if weighing something invisible. "This is Liam. Yes, he's a student. Yes, we're involved. I'm not ashamed of it. But maybe you should ask yourselves why you think I should be." A professor near the front, Liam didn't recognize him, stood. Then another. The MC, flustered, tried to take back the mic. The moment was breaking apart, tipping either into chaos or revelation. Then Liam spoke. "I've spent years trying to write something true," he said, voice rough. And nothing I've ever written is as honest as what we are. No applause. Just stares. Muted judgment. Some admiration. Mostly discomfort. They left before the speeches resumed. Outside, Maris exhaled slowly. Well, she said. That should end things quickly. He squeezed her hand. Or begin them. She didn't answer. But she didn't let go. The fallout arrived, not like a storm, but like the slow, invisible rise of floodwater, quiet at first, then everywhere. Maris lost 2 clients within a week, both citing internal restructuring in the same dry, rehearsed tone. The university didn't respond officially, but Liam's department chair requested a check-in meeting where he was advised to consider how his associations might affect future fellowship recommendations. No one said the word inappropriate, but it hung in the air like mold. Around campus, he was no longer invisible. Some students gave him nods that felt like solidarity. Others whispered. A girl in his poetry seminar asked with thinly veiled curiosity, "Was she your professor?" He said no. She replied, "Oh. Then it's kind of hot, I guess." He didn't respond. Maris withdrew. Not from him, not entirely, but from everything else. She stopped visiting the grocery store during the day. She silenced her phone more often. Her house, once chaotically alive, took on a quieter mood, curtains drawn tighter, books returned neatly to their shelves. She was still with him, but the light in her seemed to flicker more often, like she was watching herself dim and didn't know how to stop it. One night, they sat on her porch in silence for a long while. Liam played with the ring on his finger, not a gift, just a cheap piece of brass he wore out of habit. Finally, he broke the quiet. "I applied for the fellowship," he said. "The one in New York." She didn't look at him, but her breath hitched the way it does when someone is surprised and trying not to be. "You didn't tell me you were going to." "I wasn't sure I would." "But after everything," he trailed off. "I think I have to go. If I get it." She nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on the dark trees beyond the fence. "You should." "That's not what I meant." "I know," she said softly. "But it's still true. They didn't fight. Neither of them were good at that. Their conflict had always existed in the quiet margins, things not said, things too carefully spoken. And now, with the world already judging, it felt cruel to turn on each other. So instead, they drifted. They saw each other less. The coffee went cold on the bench again. His radio show returned to jazz, no more ambient, no more late-night confessions. She started baking at odd hours. Banana bread, mostly. She never ate it. A month passed. He got the fellowship. He came to her door the night he found out, wearing a coat too thin for February, shaking from more than just the cold. She let him in without a word. In the kitchen, he sat on the counter while she made tea, neither of them mentioning that they both hated tea. "I leave in August," he said. "They want me early. Orientation, prep, housing stuff." She nodded. "I don't want to leave you." "But you have to," she said. "And you will. I want to keep us." She smiled then, not bitter, just impossibly sad. "You can't keep something that doesn't fit in your suitcase." They didn't say goodbye that night. But it felt like one. The weeks blurred. He finished his final classes. She packed away the projector, put fresh curtains up, repainted the hallway a pale blue. He didn't ask why. The last time they saw each other, it was June. On the bench where it all started. She arrived first. He brought coffee again, both cups correct this time. Hers with cream, his black. They sat in the silence that had once been their comfort, now turned delicate and sharp. She handed him a small envelope. Inside was a photo, the two of them, blurry, standing under the streetlight behind the hardware store, the night they'd first kissed. Neither of them had taken it. It must have been from the elusive witness, the one who had almost destroyed them. "Where did you get this?" "I found it in my mailbox." "No note." "Why give it to me?" Because I don't want it to become a ghost. I want it to be something we both remember for what it was. He studied the image. Their bodies close. Her face tilted toward his, not smiling, not crying. Just present. Do you think, he asked, in some other life, we could have made this work? She leaned back, eyes half closed in the early summer light. Maybe. But maybe if we'd met at the right time, we wouldn't have needed each other like we did now. He nodded, unsure if he agreed, but knowing he'd never forget the sound of her voice saying it. As they stood to leave, she touched his hand once more. Promise me something. Anything. When people ask what this was, what we were, don't lie. I won't. She hesitated. Even if they laugh? Even if they burn me for it? That night, he wrote a short poem. Just a few lines. He never read it on air. Never published it. But he folded it carefully, tucked it into the first book she ever read on that bench M train, and left it on her doorstep the morning he left town. The final lines read: I met you at the edge of stillness. And for a while, I moved again. The rest is silence.